What if the biggest problem facing America's cities isn't crime or politics or even the cost of living? What if it's something harder to fix? What if it's that the entire model of the modern city is broken? For decades, we built cities around a simple idea. People commute in, they go to work, and then they go home to a quiet suburb and a possibly more affordable house. But COVID broke that model. Downtowns emptied out, transit systems lost riders, and office towers went dark. And in San Francisco, the undisputed economic engine of the West Coast, the ripple effects are everywhere. Housing is more unaffordable than ever, public transit faces a fiscal cliff, and the city's messy global reputation is still not cleaned up. So the question isn't just how does San Francisco recover? It's what does that recovery look like? Welcome to Pacific Time, where we ask what if questions about the problems, challenges, and opportunities facing the West Coast. I'm Ashley Brown, co host of Pacific Time. In this episode, my co host, Greg Ammerfell, has a conversation with Sean Elsbernd, the CEO of SPUR, the San Francisco Bay Area Planning and Urban Research Center. Sean's been on every side of this equation. He was a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, he was a senior staffer to Senator Dianne Feinstein, and most recently, he was chief of staff to former Mayor London Breed. This is a conversation about housing, transit, and governance, and the messy reality of trying to make big changes in a big city in real time. Here's Sean and Greg.
Let's dive right in. You live in San Francisco. You have lived in San Francisco your whole life, or most of it, and have worked there and been very central to it. San Francisco has such an interesting perception challenge from my perspective. And I say this as someone whose dad grew up there, who lived there in his 20s and loves the city. I left my heart there for sure. What explains this sort of national perception of San Francisco?
Born and raised in the city and county of San Francisco in the 49 square miles, fourth generation San Franciscan, not fourth generation Bay Area, fourth generation 49 square miles. There's no question post COVID, San Francisco took a massive knock in terms of its reputation. Bluntly, the level of street condition deterioration became a very visual black eye for the city. And it was very easy for someone to take a photo, do some video, and for that to go viral. There were a couple of notable crimes that happened that made it seem as if San Francisco was a crime infested 49 square miles. When, I remember one in particular, there was a gentleman in Walgreens on a bicycle inside, grabbing a bunch of things, throwing them in his backpack, and bicycling out. And the interior video of Walgreens set records on social media sites. And it made it look like this happens every day, every hour of the day in every Walgreens in San Francisco. And San Francisco lost control of its narrative. One of the great things that our current mayor has done is really change that perception and change that narrative.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, and I'd love to talk some more about that. But another aspect of the San Francisco narrative, and maybe these things go together, is the sort of notion of the San Francisco liberal. Here you've got very prominent national politicians with the likes of Gavin Newsom and Nancy Pelosi, who epitomize this perception. What explains that one?
That's one that San Francisco, I think, the vast majority of San Franciscans wrap our arms around and celebrate and are very, very proud of. That's a flag we fly high. I mean, the fact that, again, here, sorry, I've now used the number how many times, but that these 49 square miles produced a Speaker of a House, a Vice President of the United States. Gavin Newsom actually is the first San Francisco mayor in almost a century to get himself elected governor. Dianne Feinstein, legendary in the United States Senate. Barbara Boxer, okay, she's not from the 49 square miles, but a football toss on the other side of the bay. We definitely punch above our weight when it comes to these champions. Admittedly, all very progressive, very liberal, but we're proud of that. That's not one that we're trying to change or one we're running away from.
What does that narrative get very right and very wrong?
What it does get right is San Francisco's political apparatus. One person, our current city attorney, he's actually said this publicly, so I can throw him under the bus. Our current city attorney, David Chu, has described San Francisco's politics as a knife fight in a phone booth. If you can survive that and you've got the skills to get through that. So I think that's one element, but maybe one of the bigger pieces you're getting at. The right wing press will like to demonize Nancy Pelosi. The Republicans in Congress have been trying to demonize her for 20 years, and how they try to say to some congressional district in the middle of Iowa, don't vote for this Democrat because you'll get turned into San Francisco. Perhaps that's what you're getting at here, Greg. Nancy Pelosi was the champion of the Green New Deal. That got portrayed as some crazy left. We're gonna take away all your money and just try to save the atmosphere and be damned what it means for your housing. That is not what the Green New Deal was, or social services, or public health. These are just core beliefs of all San Franciscans. Greg, I'm struggling here because internally in the city, we embrace it all. We're not trying to run away from it. It is who we are.
In your analogy, this sort of knife fight in a phone booth, there's there are a lot of fights happening, right? And there's plenty of disagreement in San Francisco. And one example I'd bring up is sure, we could talk about liberal politics, but San Francisco has also been the capital of the economic engine of the country for many years now. And again, I mean, I think the AI surge is very much headquartered in the city, not even down in Silicon Valley. And that wealth, that influence carries with it a different set of views than liberal orthodoxy.
The amount of venture capital money that is just coming into San Francisco dwarfs that of any other place in the country, including New York City. And yes, that is in large part probably because of two entities, both OpenAI and Anthropic are in the city and county proper. And definitely, if you expand to include just 45 minutes south of us, Silicon Valley, I mean, pales in comparison. There's more money here than you could imagine. Um, and that has been creating some tension locally. There's no question there. a- And one of the other things I think we celebrate in San Francisco is, frankly, I'm a bit of an anomaly that I am a fourth generation San Franciscan. San Francisco is, frankly, Greg, a little bit more like you. People who spend 5, 10, 15 years here and then move on, or have spent 40 years somewhere else, come here. Um, and San Francisco has always been a place, I mean, going back to the days of the gold rush, bringing people in and they do their bit and then they're on their way. And there is often, especially what we're seeing now, over the last 10 years, this new AI boom as opposed to 20 years ago in the tech boom. A lot of people have come to San Francisco with, going back to your first question, with a certain perception of what San Francisco was going to be. So, on the one hand, it's not nearly as terrible as was portrayed. But on the other hand, are coming with more traditional beliefs about how city government should be run. And they've had some success, but also running into some more traditional brick walls and some of the same challenges that the city has been facing for generations. And this, I think there's another piece here. So many of these brilliant engineers, these brilliant tech folks who are doing just amazing things with AI. You put them down in front of the laptop, you put them in their team. They're able to do these great things. Well, we should be able to figure out homelessness too. We should be able to figure out why public transit doesn't generate profit. Public policy is not the same thing. And there's a level of frustration that we can't just stick the problem into ChatGPT, stick the problem into Claude, give it a good prompt, and we'll get the answer. That's not the way public policy works.
You set that one right up. How does public policy work, Sean?
This one I think might be more unique to San Francisco, and this definitely has its pros and its cons. But so much of our policy in San Francisco is community driven. The idea of being able to just Say, okay, this is the way I'm going to reform the city's charter, for example, change the city's constitutional structure. I'm going to do it by fiat. I'm going to draft this in the back room. I'm going to tell you this is how it is, and you're going to vote yes. Forget about it. That's not how we work in San Francisco. You better put together your working group. You better go talk to every single neighborhood because guess what? Every single neighborhood has a homeowner association and also has a tenants association. And probably each building within that neighborhood has their own separate tenant. And if you're not checking the box and reaching out to different communities, you'll get steamrolled. And that does have a pro, but it also has some cons too. Uniquely, I think in San Francisco, our public process is extensive.
Got it. Sounds like a thriving democracy for better and for worse. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've hinted at some of the many issues on the table for San Francisco and the broader Bay Area. Before we dive into those, and I want to, could you give a little bit of a nutshell on you and your role at Spur? And we'll dive in more deeply later.
Sure. So SPUR is the San Francisco Bay Area Planning and Urban Research Center. It's the acronym spur.org. We're an organization that comes all the way out of the 1906 earthquake. We are over 100 years old. Started predominantly focused on housing, but in short, what we have become, I like to sell us as the think and do tank on housing, transportation, environmental resiliency, environmental sustainability, and good government. An umbrella that does allow us to get into a lot of different things. Good government is pretty broadly defined. We are a nonprofit, about 25 staffers, brilliant research analysts, and the role we try to play is the power of convening, bringing the different groups, different interest groups, different leaders who often are on different sides of an issue together, conversations, try to find that middle ground, try to find that place of positive policy recommendations. I suppose one of the things that puts a smile on our face every now and then is calling out some of the more touchy third rail issues that electeds often like to stay away from. Sometimes, if for the bare minimum of civic education, making people aware of the issue, but also this is, I said, think and do tank. One of the words of caution that we live by, one of the phrases of caution that we live by at Spur is we don't want to just produce pretty shelfware. We don't want to just produce reports. Greg reads, loves them, and then they go up on his shelf. We want to produce them. You're going to love them, but then we're going to get into action and figure out how we implement the recommendations. And so I did say we are the San Francisco Bay Area Planning and Urban Research Center. Most of our work, admittedly, is in the city and county of San Francisco, but we are doing work in both the cities of Oakland and the cities of San Jose.
Yeah, and the Bay Area, just to quantify this for listeners outside of the Bay Area is what, 3.5 million people altogether,
Correct.
which makes it one of the largest metro areas in the country with an incredibly diverse population. And yes, we hear about Silicon Valley, but it is a completely diversified economy, from my understanding.
Completely diversified. Although the Silicon Valley tech does drive quite a bit of every other element of the economy. Um, and then I've mentioned to you three cities. While we are one Bay Area, and while there are a lot of unifying characteristics, these are three cities with three separate cultures too. What works in San Francisco does not necessarily work in Oakland, and certainly does not necessarily work in San Jose. And so it requires us to do a little juggling and understanding those communities.
Yeah, and perhaps we'll come back to talking about how to affect policy at a city level versus a regional level. I think that's going to come up more and more on the West Coast. And then just by way of explaining your background, I mean, you most recently been chief of staff to the prior mayor, London Breed, served on city council in San Francisco. You ran operations for Senator Dianne Feinstein. You have lived the experience of generating the policy ideas and then translating those through a lot of community engagement, correct?
Absolutely. Maybe one little stickler I'd throw on that resume that you articulated. San Francisco is technically a board of supervisors, not quite a city. Same thing, legislative branch, but yes, elected official in San Francisco for 9 years, state director for Senator Feinstein, and then yes, chief of staff to Mayor Breed during her entire tenure as mayor. I have seen the local government. I've been the elected. I've also been the staff. I've been in the legislative branch, the executive branch, and then the best experience, or they were all wonderful experiences. But the experience with Senator Feinstein, getting me out of my balloon, my cocoon of San Francisco, getting me out of my cocoon of the Bay Area, having to do work in the Central Valley, having to do work in the northernmost reaches of the state, being down and dealing with Tijuana River sewage issues in San Diego, understanding real transportation challenges in Los Angeles. We have our challenges here in San Francisco, but my goodness, what's going on in Los Angeles, even more challenging. So it gave me a broader perspective.
All right, well, let's tap into that perspective and the perspective of your organization. San Francisco and the broader Bay Area face a lot of really complex issues these days. I mean, it's interesting to hear that Spur came about in the face of a housing issue and after the 1906 earthquake. Guess what the my perception is the top issue in the Bay Area is still housing. What's going on with housing in that region?
Housing, without question, affordability as to housing is the, I think, number one issue in the region. Not to say the other issues aren't critical and demanding, but housing is definitely the one that is at the top of mind. I think what has happened over the last few years that has helped move the pendulum in a more positive direction than the way it had been headed is there is a much stronger collaboration, and this is something Spur has been advocating for years, with local government and Sacramento and state government, and the way state government and local government are partnering with one another. There are a lot of people locally who are following this who might pull their hair out and start screaming by hearing me say the phrase partnering. A lot of the folks would say, no, they're not partnering. It's just Sacramento telling local government what to do. From our perspective, we think we do need this, and we would characterize it as a partnership where you have the state as the umbrella setting certain goals, setting certain requirements, and yes, pushing and holding cities accountable. And if they don't meet those goals, well, then yes, there are repercussions. So for those cities that are stepping up, trying to address the challenges, they achieve those benefits. But a lot of those cities would look around and say, why am I moving towards a positive place on housing when my neighbors just to the south or just to the east are walking away and sticking me with all the responsibility? We needed, frankly, Sacramento to step in and bring us all together. There are admittedly many cities who are objecting and suing the state. Governor Newsom and the legislature have taken some hits in some more, shall we say, conservative areas of the state. But in areas like San Francisco, I think it has been of great benefit.
So, what is the state of play around the issue of housing and affordability more generally in the Bay Area?
We're still not there. I mean, all I said was that the pendulum is starting to work in the right way. I think what's happened here, let's use again, I'll go back to San Francisco. San Francisco was under deadline from the state of California. If you don't adopt a new general plan that includes a complete rezoning of your city that will allow for tens of thousands of new units of housing, we, Sacramento, are going to pull back north of $100 million in state funding over the course of many years. And so the city really had no choice. And the other thing, beyond just losing the money, the state kind of hammer, so to speak, is that the local planning department would lose all say over control of what can get built next door to me, let alone in downtown. And I could buy the house next to me. I happen to live in a single family neighborhood and decide, you know what? That's now going to be a 12-story tower. And there'd be nothing that could be done to stop that. So the rules have been changed to allow for more housing. That's the positive. But that in and of itself doesn't generate the housing, right? You still have the issue. I mean, we've changed the zoning rules. That's great. But being able to frankly, afford to build still remains challenging. What we are looking at SPUR, in partnership with the cities, this is not just us on our own. I mean, our biggest nightmare, we worked so hard to get that, what was referred to as the family zoning plan passed. Good political communication tools by calling it the family zoning plan. Would be if you and I had a conversation 4 years from now and you were to say to me, "Sean, how many new units of housing were built as a result of family zoning?" And
Mhm.
I had to look at you and tell you, "Well, maybe 10, 20." That all we've done is change the zoning map. We need to find a way to get these developers to put shovels in the ground. And so we're looking at what we can do to speed up permitting reform. Beyond just getting the zoning done, there's a lot of other elements of permitting. What can we do to speed that process up? And then we're looking at some really kind of unique things. Um, there are rules about when in San Francisco, it's one of the more extreme. If you build higher than, I believe it's 3 stories, all of a sudden, instead of having one set of staircases, you need to have two set of staircases. Cities around the country, and in particular cities around the world, have much higher height limits. Why is that a big deal? Two reasons. The cost of construction is significantly higher with two staircases and takes up a big chunk of the floor plan. You can put more units of housing in a building if you can go higher and only have one single stair. So we're working with a variety of developers and fire folks because you have the two stairs for fire code reasons, to find a way to address the fire need while also addressing that. There really is a lot more that can be done. We're also looking um, at affordable housing in San Francisco. Affordable housing anywhere requires some sort of subsidy. There needs to be some sort of government participation in some way, whether that's at the federal level, state level, local level, preferably a combination of all three. How you finance that from a public agency standpoint, particularly in an era when typical tax revenues are down and budgets are in very bleak places, whether you're in San Francisco or I don't know the details of the Seattle budget, but I bet it's not great right now. I don't care what city you're in. City public revenues are down. And we are looking for creative ways of generating new revenues to fund affordable housing. And there's no silver bullet, but all of it needs to be looked at.
Got it. So what I hear you saying to simplify at a gross level is there's a funding and incentive stream that's going on right now, and then there's a sort of removing the hurdles to construction and just making more housing available. So looking at codes, looking at plans to basically unblock real estate development.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
got it. Easy. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have it done by the end of the day.
What would be, I don't know, look 10 years out, Sean. What would be a sign that real progress had been made? What's it let's be pie in the sky for a second. What would be an incredible sign, and what do you think is more realistic?
All right. I'll give you the pie in the sky. Pie in the sky in another thing we haven't gotten into yet that is out there in the national narrative about San Francisco that is true. Our office vacancy numbers are quite high. Our downtown, I know downtowns across the country are suffering the whole post-COVID change of work concept, and that might lead into a discussion later with you about transportation. But it has dramatically changed our downtown. I think San Francisco's numbers are on the far side of the bell curve in terms of the country, and frankly, not a lot of progress has been made. Um, in the ideal world, we will have seen buildings in the downtown core that have been transformed from office to residential. It's that feels like the gold ring that we're all chasing. We've yet to, we've made this tax change, we made this zoning change, we've made this the new priority. And if you file a permit, you're going to the top of the line. None of it seems to have worked yet and caught anybody. But 10 years from now, maybe we will have found the solution to get more people living downtown. And then I think another piece for those who know their little bit of their San Francisco geography, I'll try to be 20,000 foot. The west side of town, if you were to look at the map, this side towards the ocean, is predominantly like where I am now physically, single family home. We have a number of high use transit corridors that have very low height limits or did have low height limits. In that family zoning plan, those height limits have changed. Seeing those projects, seeing that kind of redevelopment happen, more people on the west side of town along the transit corridors, that's the pie in the sky. The combination of more people living downtown and more units along those transit corridors, that would be phenomenal.
Interesting and very, relatable for me. I mean, I'm literally looking out my window and across the street. Rezoning is up for discussion. It could be it c tall buildings could be going up literally across the street. And we have the first example right down the street, and I think it's gonna be great for the neighborhood. It's a mixed-use residential with a brand new grocery store going in that's gonna make it easy to shop for groceries, with a five-minute walk. That's fantastic, and we have a transit corridor that goes right to our neighborhood. I mean, what the reason I indulge expressing what's going on in my neighborhood is I think it speaks to a very different conception of what cities are, and the need for shifting our old thinking about downtown is where you go to work on the train and you go back out to the suburbs and never the twain shall meet. Do you share that perspective about the changes happening?
Absolutely. And one little economic indicator that has helped, I think, more San Franciscans recognize the benefit of that. Or maybe they don't recognize it, but they're living it in practice. The city is able to collect sales tax revenue information by areas of the city. No surprise, downtown sales tax post COVID plummeted. But your neighborhood commercial corridors, where you can walk to that little bodega, where you can walk to that coffee shop, where you can take a 5-minute bus, those sales tax numbers are booming. There are areas of the city where the commercial corridors were stagnant are now thriving because I think more and more people are recognizing the benefit of the connectivity of their neighborhoods and having to use public transit.
Yeah. So let's shift gears and talk about transportation because that's in the headlines in the Bay Area. What's the situation?
Again, I don't think this is unique to San Francisco. I mean, earlier this year or late last year, we saw Philadelphia and Chicago having to deal with this. But our public transit systems are absolutely falling off the fiscal cliff, as they say. Combination of three things. Again, the downtown, and this is unique to San Francisco's downtown. It has collapsed so much. BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit, which is the network that hits, tries to address those 3.5 million people and is spread throughout 5 counties in San Francisco, well, 6 counties of the 9 in the Bay Area. Its ridership numbers have plummeted. As a result, its revenue numbers have plummeted. And that's the same for all the public transit systems. Um, Second, there always were those folks, no matter what you did, they were not taking public transit. They were driving downtown. Well, the one benefit of people driving downtown is they had to pay for parking, and it was expensive, and it generated a boatload of revenue. Well, they're not doing that anymore, and that revenue was gone, and that revenue went to support public transit. Um, and then the third, in the immediate years after COVID, the federal government did step forward and say, "Hey, we're going to help you along. We're going to give you some funds. We're going to give you some." All right. Well, that money is now no longer coming through. So those three big losses of funds, there have been a few other pieces, but that's the big driver, have put BART, have put Caltrain, which is the train that runs from San Francisco down the peninsula, down all the way to Gilroy, but predominantly San Francisco to San Jose. And that train has been around so long. Abraham Lincoln was president when that train route first started. San Francisco's MUNI system, municipal rail system, which is the buses and trains within San Francisco proper. AC Transit, which is Alameda County's transit system. That's Oakland, East Bay. And the VTA, the Valley Transportation Authority. All are facing cataclysmic cuts to their system. If by this November, the voters of 5 of 9 counties do not approve a sales tax increase that'll be on the ballot in November. I mean, BART, which is currently 5 separate lines, would have to consolidate down to 2 lines. You'd be doing all kinds of transferring, delays. Caltrain, which runs multiple trains an hour up and down that peninsula corridor, would go to 1 train an hour. It really would be devastating to the public transit system. And and I will say we, because SPUR is a big part of it, are out collecting signatures to place this measure on the ballot. We are on track, assuming we do. We need 50% of the voters to say yes in November to prevent those cuts.
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, the big picture that we're talking about from a lot of different angles is that people went home during COVID and haven't ever really come back, not in the numbers that we were used to, which has ripple effects on commercial real estate downtown, on tax revenue collected from parking and other things, and on transit systems that were designed as a hub and spoke between connecting suburbs to city, right?
That's absolutely right. And I think San Francisco in particular is taking a bit more of a brunt compared to other cities. This goes back to a previous question, in that a lot of our economy is tech, is AI, which is the kind of work that lends itself even more so to remote, to being able to work from home. It's a little easier to do. And then I think another piece that might be a little more unique to San Francisco, that it has its pro, but it also exacerbates this problem. If you go back to the COVID years, the COVID numbers, talking healthcare here, San Francisco had the lowest mortality rate of any city in the country when it came to COVID, and the highest vaccination rate of any city in the country. I think that has a lot to do with, sure, the city did an excellent job of managing the crisis, but San Franciscans and the region are very health conscious. We're very attuned to these kind of things. RFK Jr.'s health plans don't land well in this region, and I think that has remained out there. And there are people who are going to say, you know what, I'm just not going to be around a lot of people. I'm going to put my health first. So pro and con.
Interesting. But it strikes me, I mean, if these measures go through related to funding public transit, that strikes me as a stopgap for a shift that's happening. And I understand the argument that if these transit systems aren't saved, it's going to go away, and that's bad for the region in the intermediate to long term, for sure. How do you, from a policy standpoint, face up to the realities of permanent shifts in the nature of the way urban regions work?
We have to recognize that downtowns are changing. This goes back to your previous question, what's the pie in the sky? Downtown San Francisco in 2030 cannot be what it was in downtown 2020. We need more people living downtown. We need more activation downtown. Growing up in San Francisco, you did not go downtown after 6 o'clock at night. It was dead. Not because it was unsafe. There was nothing to do. There were no restaurants. There was no activity. There was nothing. We need to change that dynamic. We've got a fun thing that we've been doing for a couple of years now. The first Thursday of every month, we block off a main street in downtown San Francisco. It's food vendors, it's a band, and it's drawing people. We need more and more of these activities, certainly in the better year or better months of the year with the weather. We're doing the outdoor movies. There's a proposal at the right at the end of Market Street by the Ferry Building to build a brand new park that will have a bit of an amphitheater, more entertainment. We need to do more of that. Downtown has to shift. To those who oppose the revenue measure in November, you're just, to your kind of what you alluded to, Greg, why would we put more money into a system that's not going to sustain itself? We need to find a way to attract more people through activity.
Mhm. Got it. Okay, which I think gets to another area that we've hinted at, which is governance, because making the shifts that you're describing, it's going to take real strength, whether it's from a mayor or a board of supervisors or a city council, depending on which city you're in. What's going on with governance? And as we talk about that, Sean, I'd love to hear your perspective on Mayor Daniel Lurie's success in office and in shifting the perception.
Mayor Lurie has done an excellent job. If you looked at our city charter, the city's governing document, any city's governing document, it will say the mayor's responsibility shall be to veto legislation, approve legislation, whatever. One thing that is never listed, but is the biggest part of the job, you need a mayor who is your chief cheerleader. You need a mayor who is selling your city to whether it's JP Morgan to continue hosting the healthcare conference that is always here the second week of January, to selling to developer X to take that vacant lot and build, to making San Franciscans feel good about being San Franciscans again. That's a big part of a mayor's job. That's what leadership is. And to his credit, he's done a great job on that. And I think that in and of itself has helped change the narrative. Another piece that is going to be a bit more challenging for him, he's really going to have to lean in on the popularity that he has developed because all politicians benefit from being popular. When you're high, you got to cash that in. He is not going to be able to do this by himself. He's going to need a partnership with the Board of Supervisors, and he's going to need a partnership with the state legislature. He's going to need a partnership. I mean, right now he's got the best of relationships with Governor Newsom. The two of them have known each other for 25 years. The mayor's wife works for Governor Newsom. I mean, they're totally connected. We've only got another, 7.5 months of Governor Newsom. We're going to have a brand new governor. Mayor Lurie is going to have to develop a new relationship. And that's a skill, just relationship building that he seems to be very good at, but it's going to be a challenge because revitalizing downtown undoubtedly is going to take some serious changes to state law that would allow for, I dare say, changes to state law akin to the old redevelopment system, where we can do infrastructure financing districts in the downtown. We can borrow against future property tax growth in certain areas, um, issue bonds without having to go to the electorate for particular downtown improvements. Perhaps the creation of a new downtown authority. All of this kind of work can be done locally, but only in partnership if granted the authority from the state of California. So he's definitely on the right path, but many challenges ahead.
And how does San Francisco compare to San Jose or Oakland in this regard?
Oakland's downtown, there's almost a symbiotic relationship between Oakland's downtown and San Francisco's downtown. Oakland's downtown, their office vacancy rates are right where San Francisco's are, if not a little bit worse. What I hear from a lot of economists in Oakland is until San Francisco's comes back, Oakland's isn't going to be able to come back because Oakland was often a place you're paying X per square foot for office space in San Francisco. Well, you can afford just a little bit less in Oakland. If the demand isn't in San Francisco, there's definitely not going to be a demand in Oakland. So they need San Francisco to come back. San Jose's challenge with downtown is maybe similar, but they are not, it is not symbiotic to San Francisco or symbiotic to Oakland. My perception is the challenge in San Jose downtown is more the topography, the geography of San Jose, Silicon Valley. It's far more spread out. It's akin to the problem with their public transportation system too. Muni, I can get anywhere in San Francisco within 2 blocks on Muni system. You cannot say that down in the Silicon Valley. It is so spread out and so much larger. Apple Apple, let's use Apple headquarters. Apple is not in downtown San Jose. Apple is all the way out in Cupertino, which is pretty far out there. Google has bought tons of land in downtown San Jose, but they haven't developed it. They are dispersed all throughout. Oracle. Oracle is in either San Francisco or San Jose. They're in Redwood City, right in the middle. Everything is spread out. And so I think the challenge with San Jose, I like the focus now. Mayor Mahan, San Jose Chamber, a lot of leaders in San Jose are really trying to capitalize. They are very close to Levi Stadium, where the Super Bowl was held, where the World Cup will be held, where the biggest concerts in the entire Bay Area happen there. Their convention center, they have a lot of recreation open space. They are trying to become the arts and entertainment and sports mecca of the Bay Area and centering those various events, both pre, post event in the downtown. It seems to be a model that, especially this year, they are the first city to host both World Cup and Super Bowl in the same year in history. No other city in the country has done that.
Can I interrupt to ask who won the Super Bowl at Levi Stadium?
No, you can certainly ask, but I blacked that out. I blacked that out.
Got it. Well, Sean,
But
thank you.
whoever it was had a quarterback that was trained by the 49ers.
Fair enough. That would be the Seattle Seahawks. So you're doing a great job characterizing the difference between the cities and the developments there, and how they're going through this period of transition. What about the governance side? How are all these different places sort of set up for the kind of strong central leadership that's going to be required in order to make these transitions well?
Trying to figure out how to describe this. I would describe here. Let me give you a spectrum starting from strong central, strong mayor to this would be your strong mayor side of the spectrum. This would be your very, very weak mayor side of the spectrum. This is the city of, well, I suppose in the big picture, the city of San Jose is here in that you
On
have
the
a
on the
city
weak side, weak
on the
mayor.
weaker side, but because you have a very strong city manager system in San Jose, the city manager, admittedly hired and fired by the city council, hired by the mayor. The mayor plays a role on the city council. But Mayor Mahan, Mayor Liccardo, his predecessor, these mayors have found a way, I think largely power of personality, to kind of burst out of the potential handcuffs that their city charter would prevent. They really are strong leaders, but the structure hasn't been great for a strong mayor system. In Oakland, you've kind of got a mushy middle. It's neither strong mayor nor weak mayor. It's neither strong city manager or weak city manager. Mayor Lee just not in a great position because she is neither on the city. Sometimes she's kind of on the city council, not really. She can't veto. Um, and so Spur specifically with Oakland, working with the Oakland League of Women Voters and Mayor Lee's Charter Reform Working Group, put forward a report just a couple months ago, making recommendations on how to change the structure of government in the city of Oakland. We highlighted that Oakland is neither strong city manager nor strong city nor strong mayor, and that the most effective governments are either one or the other. Oakland, you need to get out of the middle. You need to choose one or the other. If you are listening to us and you want our recommendation, we recommend the stronger mayor version. And that process, as I started with earlier, describing San Francisco as being collaborative, bringing in various groups. Mayor of Oakland is leading that effort with the city council to consider that proposal potentially for the November ballot. And then you have San Francisco that has a fairly strong mayor. We also, Octoberish, Novemberish, put forward a report making a series of recommendations on how to change San Francisco's city government structure. That definitely leans toward a stronger mayor system of government than what we already have. Mayor Lurie has jumped on a number of the proposals in that, not all of them, but a number of the proposals in the report, and is now actively out collecting signatures to place three separate proposals on the November ballot that would definitely create a more central, stronger mayor's office and create a stronger, this is really arcane bureaucracy stuff, a city administrator's office, almost like a strong COO.
So, while I can think of several examples of famous characters in the mayor's office, ranging from Willie Brown to Gavin Newsom, that you're saying even those kinds of mayors, that was maybe more a reflection of their strong personalities than the authority that they were able to exercise in their office.
That's correct. But there were times, I mean, and again, working with Mayor Breed as her chief of staff, strong mayor charter was at our disposal, but there were still, I can't tell you the number of times we bang our head and say, we really want to do this. And the city attorney would come back and tell us, sorry, you can't. The charter doesn't allow you. And we're really trying to address a lot of those holes.
Got it. Plus, the national context must be relevant right now. It is strange times for consolidating executive authority, isn't it?
This is going to be, I think, this is the more political communications challenge Mayor Lurie is going to have between now and November. You've nailed it, Greg. Mayor Lurie, Donald Trump, two totally different people, but the concept of a stronger executive is a potential unifier. Thankfully, the thing he has in his back pocket that will help him, and voters of the city love him. He is just killing it on an approval rating. It may take a little, shall we say, spending that political capital to get it done. But my impression is he sees this not just for himself, but Mayor Lurie's always been very good about talking about he's there at best 8 years. He wants to leave the city in a better place, and he thinks this will be good for the city long after he's gone.
And look, I mean, it will be interesting to hear how that evolves. But is this a story that's mostly about executive authority and the way Donald Trump wields it is the same as Daniel Lurie? Or is it about saying we need stronger local leaders in order to counterbalance an unreliable federal partner, or maybe even a gubernatorial partner, in order to take care of what we value in our cities and our counties?
That will be the big picture question that is going to have to be answered this year, and that I think will be discussed over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yes, we'll check back in. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm referencing governors. The California gubernatorial race is alive and well, and as you say, Gavin Newsom leaves office this fall. Fascinating race with recent developments. Eric Swalwell from the East Bay stepping out of the race, stepping out of Congress in the wake of sexual abuse allegations. What is the state of the gubernatorial race? And knowing that SPUR has started hosting some of the gubernatorial candidates, I'm not asking you to weigh in with an opinion about who's best, but what are you seeing and hearing from people in the Bay Area about what they're interested in for the next governor?
I mean, the state of the race is very much in flux. Keep in mind that the way California elects, everybody runs. It's not like it's party primary. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, whatever party you may be, we all get one ballot, and the top two go to November. And it's not as if one person gets 50% plus one, they win. It doesn't matter if somebody were to get 99%. Uh, the top two go forward. I really would like to disabuse folks of this concept. There was this concept that two Republicans might make the top two, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. More likely than not, one Republican will make it. And then the question really is who's going to finish second? I mean, Spur, we are focused on policy issues, not candidates. I have to put my asterisk there and be very clear. But maybe I'll just give you the scuttlebutt. Tom Steyer, Katie Porter seem to be the top two. Unclear which one of the two might surpass the other. Um, it's only been a week, but it appears as if the two candidates who are maybe coming up as a result of Swalwell's departure. Just saw a headline that there's a new poll out that shows Secretary Becerra, Javier Becerra, former congressman, former Secretary of Health and Human Services under Biden, may be coming up. And Mayor Mahan has been on a slow but steady rise even pre-Swalwell. So, we've got 6, 7 weeks before the election. It'll be fascinating. You mentioned the speaker series that we have had. We've uh, kept the questions fairly consistent amongst everyone, largely focusing on the issues you and I have now talked about: housing, transportation. Have done some interesting environmental sustainability issues. Talked to Spur, did a report in January on wildfire resilience on the anniversary of the Palisades and Altadena fires. Talk a little earthquakes. It's been interesting. Every single one of them are ready to talk housing. So, Greg, to your question, seems like housing's the biggest issue. Candidates certainly would agree with you. They are all prepared, and frankly, when I've made the invitations to these folks, many of them have said, "Ooh, I can finally get my housing plan out in detail." So they're ready to talk housing. And most of the candidates, I mean, I could probably with a very sharp knife parse out the differences, but generally speaking, they're all pretty much on the same page. At least the ones we've had. I will admit Mr. Hilton and Sheriff Bianco, the two Republicans who I've invited repeatedly, have not come, but they'd be the two outliers, I would think, in terms of housing policy.
So On the Democratic side, the policies are hard to distinguish. Is this, as usual, going to come down to personalities uh, and maybe some amount of track record on affecting progress on these issues?
You used a word that I was gonna use, effectiveness. Who's the one who can get it done? You're saying the right things, but who's got whether it's the track record, sure, personality is a part of it. Who's gonna be that person who can go into a, legislature and get a bill passed? Who's a person who can go down to the city of Fresno in the morning, city of Huntington Beach in the afternoon, and then come back to Sacramento, talk to 3 different communities of interest and unite everybody. Who do the voters think have that skills? Yeah, I think you're right, Greg. It'll probably come down to that.
It strikes me that, like the presidential election now, there's the race between the people who really want the job, and there's the race between the people who are looking for the chance to build name recognition for a different job. Do you see that taking shape here too? You may not accept the premise.
No, that's what I was gonna say. I don't accept the premise. Of the candidates I've spoken to, which is most of them, I think they all wanna be governor. I don't think there's anybody in this race who's just doing this because they're getting ready for something else. Now, I'm not saying that if they lose, they're gonna go do something else, but no, they've all impressed me that they're in it entirely.
Well, needless to say, California's governorship is not just an important job presiding over the third, fourth largest economy in the world, and 40 million people. It's a proving ground for higher office as well. This is a race that we'll certainly be watching closely, and I suspect lots of people will.
Including the president. Assuming it is a Democrat who wins, this is someone who will immediately launch to the leadership of the Democratic Party nationally and will likely be in a position of speaking truth to President Trump. No question about it. I mean, there's a reason why President Trump weighed in. He endorsed a candidate already.
Right.
He's got an interest here.
Right. Right. So we will stay tuned. I suspect we'll be talking again about this.
Happy to.
Let's bring it back locally and back to Spur. Spur seems like such an interesting organization. It's distinct from the think tanks in DC like Brookings and Heritage and others. I don't find perfect analogies for it in other big cities on the West Coast. What's the secret sauce?
Thank you for saying that. I think we fill a very unique lane. The secret sauce has been the independence of our work. Um, there are times that my own experience before I got to Spur. Boy, that was a great report. I really want to get into it. Or what the hell was that? That report is horrible. I totally disagree with that. I mean, to put Spur into a box of progressive or moderate, conservative or liberal, Spur doesn't fit that way. And I think that has been very helpful. Yes, we are a nonprofit. Yes, we do receive funds from folks, but everybody who contributes knows there is zero editorial control that comes along with your donation. This is work coming from through our, again, I think I used the phrase earlier, our power of convening, the ability to still attract folks of different opinions because they know that we are a trusted source. Having that century plus reputation really helps us get away with that and do that.
Where does Spur go next?
I mean, in the short term, and by short term, I mean next year, we're in a position to have one of the more successful years that Spur has had in decades if you grade success by implementation. In that Mayor Lurie is going to have 3 proposals on the November ballot that come straight out of our reports. Mayor Lee is going to have a proposal on the Oakland ballot that comes straight out of our work. And the regional transportation measure is a proposal that comes out of work over the last 3 years in Sacramento and now regionally. So our big picture focus is to get that done over the next year. And then capitalizing over the next, let's see, go to 2028. I think the next 2 things, and we haven't talked too much about one of these. First, housing. We did talk about the need to find ways to fund affordable housing. There has been growing discussion of a regional, so again, kind of like the regional sales tax, this would not just be one county, but multiple counties. My aspiration would be all 9 counties, so even the North Bay, of some sort of housing bond that would generate significant money for the construction of affordable housing throughout the region. And then an issue that is near and dear to Spur's heart that we haven't talked at all about. We live in the most beautiful bay in the world, the Bay of San Francisco. Shoreline resiliency and protecting the bay, very, very important to us. A number of years ago, the 9 counties came together to create a new authority to oversee funding for bay restoration work. That funding expires, and we need to get it reauthorized. And SPUR will be a big part of that work. But those will be that kind of, shall we say, big picture, the kind of stuff that will attract a lot of attention. We'll continue to do our strong work, looking at the issues, publishing our reports in our key areas, and we'll see what comes. I mean, one of the great things about SPUR is having the flexibility as the big challenging issues come, we can shift and pivot and dive into them.
You've hinted at this just now and throughout our conversation, really, at the distinction between issues that are tackled at the city level versus the regional level. How do you decide where to pursue a particular policy?
I can't tell you there's an exact matrix. There are a number of elements that go into that question. I guess what I could tell you right now is we are doing a lot of, other than the regional transit measure, we're doing a lot of city specific. What is attracting me in 2028 to the idea of doing that regional housing and doing that regional base parcel tax for um, shoreline restoration is branding SPUR as a more regional organization. Again, I'll use my pendulum analogy. We're a little too much right now on the city focus. We are the San Francisco Bay Area Planning and Urban Research Center, and we do need some focus on the Bay Area. And frankly, I've talked about some great work we're doing in Oakland, great work we're doing in San Francisco. I didn't really highlight for you much great work we're doing in San Jose. I'm looking for that next big project in San Jose.
Yeah, and to answer my own question, I mean, it strikes me that many of the things you're talking about, they're not city specific problems. Transit is not just in San Francisco. It is regional. The environment and protecting the bay is regional. If you tackle housing and try to do so with a tax just in San Francisco, well, guess what? People are going to move to Marin or move to Oakland to avoid that tax. So there is a need to collaborate and confederate around some of these issues that I think is instructive for lots of other places.
True, and you've highlighted some, but when we do the city specific work, like I mean, reference to the family zoning work that we did in San Francisco, uh, already had conversations with the city of San Jose and their planning department. What lessons learned did we achieve in San Francisco, and how can we replicate that just within our 3 cities of interest? Yes, regional issues, but the cities have to manage them. So there's a lot of learning that we do that we're able to apply.
Wrap up, Sean, with some what if questions. I love what if questions, and I like coming at this through kind of a dystopian lens and a utopian lens. And you've done some of this already by imagining the conversion of downtown commercial real estate to residential, but even bigger. 10 years hence, what is the nightmare scenario for the Bay Area?
Nightmare scenario is public transit measure will have failed. BART is a shell of what it once was. Caltrain is no longer running. One thing we did not talk about, we talk about selling transit, but for those folks who will never ride public transit and are driving on our 2 main north-south freeways, 101 and 280, imagine what your commute's going to be like if those transit lines go away. And of course, the issue of affordability and housing that we have not properly addressed it. And the average single family home in San Francisco, would you say 10 years, is going for north of $3.5 million, and that the dichotomy of the very rich and the very poor is just getting further and further apart. Which here you're asking for the worst of the worst. That we have a ongoing federal government that continues to big word or a strong word, I'll use it, starve local governments from social service funding, and that's the worst case. Unemployment goes up. Yeah, hell, and hell, you want this? We've also had a. I just read a stat today. And I know Seattle has this issue as well. There is a 71% chance of a 6.9 earthquake over the next 30 years. Well, it has been 27 years since our last 6.9 earthquake. So, according to the USGS, we may very well have one soon. If so, I'll throw that one in there for you too.
So we'll be prepared to duck and cover. But let's flip that around on a more hopeful note, Sean. And obviously, the utopian scenario is the opposite of a lot of what you described. But it particularly in a region that's so good at painting amazing pictures of what the future could be. What do you and Spur hope for the Bay Area in 10 years?
All right. Well, obviously, the high flying transportation that we're seeing public transit not just survive but thrive. That we've got new lines that are expanding to new developments that have been built, not just the existing developments, but new developments of affordable housing, of family housing, of more dense housing near transit corridors, and that we have new. I guess I shouldn't say entirely new, but I'd love to see more water transit connecting the bay from one corner of the bay to the other. We have a bare bones system, but we're gonna need that. I'd like to see high speed rail coming through. 10 years is probably way too optimistic, but we've got a lot of work that could be done on that, connecting the and we've talked about the traditional Bay Area, but as more and more people are connecting out to the Central Valley, they are working in San Francisco. They are working in the Bay Area. How do we connect to public transit to those folks all the way out there to reduce commute and all of the environmental damage that results from that? What else? Let me give you something fun. How about a new soccer stadium in the heart of downtown San Francisco that has both a men's and women's soccer team that can also handle concerts and all kinds of fun stuff, bringing the urban core a new exciting flavor. Lot that we can do.
San Francisco is often treated like a symbol. Depending on who you talk to, it's either the future or a warning. But this conversation makes clear that it's neither. It's a preview. Because the forces reshaping San Francisco, like remote work, housing scarcity, and shifting economics, aren't unique to the Bay Area. They're coming for every major metropolitan area. So the question isn't whether cities will change, they already have. The question is, can they adapt with policies that work, with less bureaucracy, with leaders who build trust and take action, and a willingness to think outside the box? That's also your story. Thanks for being with us on Pacific Time. Please like, follow, and share at Pacific Time Post on Substack, YouTube, and your favorite podcast platform.